Welcome to helpmath.com. Today we're going to try to simplify these rational expressions. Here we have a rational expression dividing another rational expression. It's different as multiplication. We just need to do one more step to simplify before we get the final answer. But as long as we see they have the quadratic expressions, we're able to factor them into linear factors, then will be easier or will be doable to get the expression reduced. So we see here we have 2x squared minus 3x minus 5. This is the more or the most general form we have. We have the coefficient in front of our x squared term is not 1. But on the denominator we have the coefficient equal 1, which make it a little bit easier. Then the expression here on the second rational expression, the numerator, we have the x squared term, we have the x squared, we have the x term, therefore makes it able to be factored by the greatest common factor. At least we have an x over there, maybe or may not have something else. And on the bottom, we are able to see, well, that's 4 is a perfect square number, then it may be just having the difference of squares here. So to start, well, we have the first expression here, 2x squared minus 3x minus 5. We're able to do that by the AC method. So we have here, our a is the coefficient of x squared is 2. Our c is negative 5. So multiply them together, we'll get a negative 10. Then we try to find the factor of negative 10. The purpose is to looking for or make them the combine of the factors to be negative 3, which in other words the coefficient of x. So before we do that, the factor here should be one positive factor and one negative factor, since the product is a negative number. Also, the sum of the two numbers is a negative one. Therefore, we have two factors. The larger factor, if we keep that as a negative number, then the sum will be a negative. So then we just list out everything possible we have. Or only two pairs possible, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Then we keep the larger one to be negative. We're able to get, well, the first pair, 1, negative 10, to have a sum of negative 9. And second pair, 2, negative 5. We're getting the sum is negative 3. Actually, the negative 3 is what we're looking for. Then we're able to rewrite the expression, the quadratic expression, 2x squared plus 2x minus 5x minus 5. The coefficient here, as we combine to make the coefficient of x, then they are the coefficient of our x when we rewrite that. The next step is just factor by grouping. We'll have first group, 2x squared plus 2x. Second group is negative 5x minus 5. The common factor, or the greatest common factor of each group, the first one is x. It will have factor out, or actually it's 2x. When we factor the 2x out, that will left x plus 1. Then second, we have negative 5x minus 5. We're able to factor out the negative 5. When we're dividing it, that will give us x. The second term will give us a positive 1. So still, we have our common factor again is x plus 1. Then the remaining factors we have is 2x minus 5. So that's our first expression. Then the denominator, similarly, we have x squared plus x minus 6. In this case, we do not have to use the AC method, but which means it could be easier to do. Right, and obviously the x squared can be only factored as x and x. What we just need to looking for is -6 getting the factors, right? And what we want is the +1 in front of our x. So before we do factor again, we know that a negative number can be factored into a positive and negative, but since again we have a positive number in front of our coefficient of x, we need to keep the positive factor to be a larger number. Right, so by listing out, we have C16 and 23 will give us the product of 6. And then we keep the larger number to be positive, and of course the smaller number is negative. We will see that -1 and 6 will give us a +5, -2 and 3 will give us a +1, which the +1 is what we're looking for. Right? So we'll have -2 and +3. Therefore, we'll factor as x - 2, x + 3. Still dividing the expression. Over here we have 2x squared minus 5x. Well, as we mentioned before, we are able to do it by the greatest common factor, which we have 2 and 5 here and cannot be factored, right? One is even number, one is odd number. But we have x and x squared can be factored x out. Right? Then the remaining inside the parentheses will have two terms, which is 2x and -5. And last but not least, we have x squared minus 4, which is the difference of two squares. They are the square of x and the square of 2. Right, so before we can cancel everything out, we have the division of the rational expression. So one last thing before the end, what we need to do is we need to make it in product, right? Therefore, we are able to reduce the fraction as we know how to do. So what we do is by the part is called KCF, right? We keep the first entire fraction we have. We change the division into a multiplication, and we're gonna flip the entire second fraction, which well, the denominator we see on the second, we make it a numerator, and whatever it's on top, we put that on the bottom. Then we'll go back to a multiplication problem, right? Therefore, whenever we see on the numerator if it matches with the denominator, we're able to reduce it or simply just cross it out. As we see, 2x minus 5 and 2x minus 5 matches, and also x minus 2 are matches. Right, so nothing else can be reduced. Therefore, we're going to have x plus 1 on the numerator times x plus 2 on the numerator. Also, we have x alone on the denominator as well as x plus 3 on the denominator. So that will be our final answer.